Hello friends, it's been such a long time since I've done any sort of voiceover or artwork time-lapse on my channel, so I'm going to attempt to kill two birds with one stone here and get working on a sketch. I'm doing a sketching session coming up later on this month, and I'm also doing a painting session later on this month. My upcoming presentation is titled Drawing is Fun, and I'm sharing this with a group of naturalists coming up later on in November. So here I am attempting some drawing, which I do think is fun. I practice this a lot, and it means that drawing is coming easier, but it doesn't mean that I don't work at it. It is always something that I work at, and yet it is so fundamental to creating a solid piece of artwork, whether it be a drawing that you take to a high level of finish or a painting. Drawing is always going to be your friend, and frankly, once you reach a certain level of proficiency at it, it is profoundly satisfying and a lot of fun. In this little video snippet, I'm attempting to get in a good sketch, not perfect, but workable sketch of a kingfisher. This image was shared from an artist reference on Facebook that I follow. Fantastic photograph. This one isn't a North American kingfisher, though. It is European, and I am in North America, so I feel like I'm cheating just a little bit. But my goals are to get in a solid sketch and to add some colors that I can let set up and then transition to the background in my next video and add some additional color layers as details onto the kingfisher. One of the things I remind students or folks who are learning drawing or other artwork with me is that drawing is about 50% erasing. It gets better, but you have to be light with your pencil marks in the first couple rounds of figuring out the shapes that you're working with. And for birds, I have a methodology that works the best for songbirds. It works relatively well for others, but I try to carve out the shape generally of the head and of the body and of the tail. And I try to find a center line for the beak as that beak comes into the shape of the skull. The eye tends to be close to this line. On songbirds, it's right on, but on other birds, I have to be careful and analyze if I have that eye in the right spot. Once I have a solid outline from those initial simple shapes, then I start carving out a silhouette or a contour for that subject. The beak is finding its way that it connects to the skull. The eye is settling into the right spot. The head feathers have reached their kind of pompadour floof level that I'm looking for, that I notice in the photograph. And then I'm mapping out the general outline of the body, and from that, seeking shapes for the wings and much smaller shapes for the feet. I also like to consider, is this bird going to look believable while it's perched on the branch? Kingfishers are interesting because they have really stout, heavy beaks for their size. They also have virtually no neck compared to other birds, and their bodies connect comically into that skull shape. Once these big shapes are in place, then I start meddling around with the outlines and basically bringing the character to this particular drawing before I transition over to color. This stage takes me quite a while, and in some cases, this is where a sketch becomes a failure. I just haven't reached a level of accuracy that I'm happy with. In this case, there's a couple issues with this sketch, but I'm not going to worry about them too much before I go to color. One of the issues I've noticed is that the body shape overall is just a little short compared to the proportions of the head. However, I'm just going to continue on with color because this isn't meant as a long finished painting. This is really just a project that I'm using to get more familiar with this species, possibly as a study for a more extensive painting. After an adjustment to how the eye is sitting within the head, I'm ready to get my brushes out, and I have my palette ready to go. So I'm assembling my water, I have a reusable cloth to clean my brushes off, and I'm making sure that I've got some colors that I think are going to work well with the photograph. This first layer is cyan, and I like to put down a fairly light wash for my first layer. This is a treat because I haven't worked on watercolor paper in several months. So to have paper that can hold up to several layers, as long as I'm gentle with those first layers, it's going to allow me to build up the color slowly, although that's always the challenge for me with watercolor. I get excited about the color intensity and I try to build up too quickly, and it either roughs up the paper so much that I can't add the additional layers I want, or it just kind of loses something. Because although watercolor is an excellent medium that dries quickly, I still struggle with patience for this stage. Again, in this video, I'm just adding a first pass of color. So I'm getting the initial kind of body colors in place, generally getting close to the values, but I don't want to go too dark, and watercolor dries lighter. I'm gonna get the beak mapped in, and once I have this first pass down, I'll pause and I'm going to let everything dry, and then I'll come back with a second pass with more detail. Stay tuned for round 2, where I add my second layers of color and finish the sketch to this. Thanks for watching.